What is an abortion? An abortion is a termination of a pregnancy after, accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of the embryo or fetus. This is the accepted definition, but for us it is more important to focus on the Catholic definition. The Catholic Church defines it as the loss of a fetal life.
When does life start?
I'm Dr. Juan Jimenez. I'm the Associate Medical Director of Radiology at Carle Foundation Hospital. Medically speaking, at the time of conception, which would be fertilization.
I think the most plausible answer to that is that it begins at conception, when the sperm and the egg meet and the egg is fertilized, because we know, at least since the 1980s, that that's when there's a full complement of genes, DNA. So the reason that's important is because after that point, to say that life begins at a certain point after that is a rather arbitrary decision. The only thing we can know for sure is that life that begins there is going to eventually be a full-grown baby. So it's most reasonable to say that's when life begins.
Life begins at conception. I didn't know this. That is not even medically debated. Biological life begins at conception. Science and biology does not debate that. In Roe v. Wade, back in the 70s, they showed that so successfully, they then changed the conversation to, well, what then when's a person? When do you become a person? It's a linguistic trick, so then we felt better about saying, well, is there life or not? There's always life from conception.
Why do women receive abortions?
Women, they get pregnant, they didn't mean to get pregnant, but they do, and maybe either one, somebody's forcing them, like their boyfriend or husband is forcing them, and try to talk them into it. Two, they may be scared, they're not quite sure how to handle the situation. Maybe they're not ready for a child and they think, what am I going to do? So they kind of go into it with not really understanding all the implications of it. They could be that they see themselves as not having money and not being able to take care of a child and so forth, so they're sort of forced into that. What I have learned, and this may not be universal, but what I've learned from people that have done like sidewalk counseling and so forth, what they've told me is that the vast majority of women that they have encountered going into abortion clinics really don't want to get an abortion. And yet they're so afraid, they're so hesitant with their lives, they don't know what to do with their lives, so they're being they're in a very psychologically vulnerable position. So I think if women were informed and helped a lot, we'd probably have a lot less abortions.
What are the negative effects of an abortion?
From a medical standpoint, it has risks like any surgical procedure. There can be bleeding, an infection, perforation of the uterus. Those are the major ones that come to mind. From a mental health standpoint, women who have had abortions have been known to suffer from depression and anxiety at a higher rate.
Emotionally, we don't often think about it, but even for the men, it's a very jarring experience for a male. There's a lot of guilt and shame that has been associated with an abortion. The good news is the church offers a beautiful experience called Rachel's Vineyard for anyone who has had an abortion, a spouse has had an abortion, boyfriend, girlfriend, well, I guess that'd be girlfriend, so the boyfriends. But to go through, it's very, very jarring. And there's no correlation to faith makes it harder. Atheist, it's easier. No, it is psychologically jarring all the way through. The woman's body that's been producing these hormones, she is already connected to this life in her psychologically, so there's a break there. So yeah, there's a lot that happens to the body and to the psychology.
But it's something like 85% of women who've had abortions say that they regret having it. And there's all kinds of women that have written books and articles and interviews about how the negative effects of having abortion. And one can imagine that because although it's hard for us as men to imagine it because the experience a woman has in carrying a child is so unique, nevertheless, we can listen to what they say, and like in my wife and my daughter's cases, it's clear that there's such an intimate tie that the woman feels with her child that clearly the loss of that child is going to inevitably have some kind of effect. We also know that there's a greater case of the instances of breast cancer and other types like cervical cancer and so forth, and women who've had abortions is much higher than it is in the general population of women.
So the teaching is that it's wrong, and there's never an occasion where we can willfully choose the death of another. Even if there's great suffering on our part, even if there's hardship, even if we're surprised, simply because the child it has a right. It has a right to life, just like none of us chose to be here. Our parents are the ones that brought us here. So there's an intrinsic right outside of us.
Pope Francis preaches that abortion is very wrong, and we as Catholics should be doing more to help the pro-life cause. Based on what Pope Francis said, what can we as Catholics do to help stop abortion?
What can be done to help? So this might sound odd, but for high schoolers, the best thing we can do, live chaste lives. That's simple. Babies come one way. Well, yeah, one way. We'll leave it at that. They come one way. And so if we're living chaste lives, babies aren't going to happen. You don't sneeze and get pregnant. There's something that has to happen. Secondly, the more that we honor the dignity of the people around us, the more we start to realize, there's a dignity about us that we don't have on our own. And so I'm going to respect the dignity of all human life. So just a common kindness and respectfulness for each other.
Well, perhaps the most important thing is to stand behind women who are pregnant and without any means to help them. And again, this has worked beautifully in a number of places. We know that the number of abortion clinics is gradually declining because people have been out there helping women to encourage them, carry your baby to term. If you can't take care of the baby, we'll get an adoption. We'll do something to help you with this, but don't take the life of your child. Another thing that we can and should do is try to bring cases to the Supreme Court to force this issue back to the states.
Here are some of the abortion statistics for the United States. In 2014, 652,639 legal induced abortions were reported to the CDC from 49 reporting areas. The abortion rate for 2014 was 12.1 abortions per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44 years, and the abortion ratio was 186 abortions per 1,000 live births. 45% of all pregnancies among U.S. women in 2011 were unintended, and about 4 in 10 of these were terminated by abortion. The total number of abortions in the United States from 1973 to 2013 is over 56.5 million. There are 219 abortions per 1,000 live births, and the abortions per year in the United States alone are 1.058 million. That's 2,899 abortions per day, 120 abortions per hour, and 1 abortion every 30 seconds.
Roe v. Wade was a landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that declared a pregnant woman is entitled to have an abortion until
1
the
year
end
after
of the
Roe
first
v. Wade
trimester
on
of
January
pregnancy
22nd,
without any
1974,
interference by
thousands
the
of
state.
pro-lifers participated
This
in
was a
First March for
monumental
Life to stand
event in
up
our
for the
nation's
unborn.
political
An
history.
inspiring rally was
It
held as
produced
members
two
of Congress
camps,
announced
pro-life
pro-life
and
legislation
pro-choice.
and expressed
This
their support for the
decision
pro-life
helped
cause.
popularize
The program
two
concluded with the
movements
Circle of
as
Life
we know
march
them
around the
today.
Capitol, followed by participants
Norma
lobbying their
McCorvey,
members of
otherwise
Congress.
known as Roe,
Each year since
switched
then,
her
hundreds of
position
thousands of
on
people have made
abortion
the trip
in
to
the late
Washington, D.C.
1990s.
to march for the rights of those not born. It's the biggest pro-life protest in the world.